The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to today's SANS webcast. We'll be starting shortly.
All right, thank you, everybody. This is Ted Demopoulos. I'm looking forward to this presentation. Hopefully everyone can hear me all right. We've had a couple of thunderstorms roll through in the last 30 minutes and knock me offline a couple times. Fortunately, I've got redundant internet connections, which both got knocked offline about 30 minutes ago. So this is an excerpt from Successful Infosec Consulting. This is the most popular part of the class. How to get clients, the Getting Clients deep dive. And I was so tempted to dive in here and modify some of this substantially today because I've interviewed 3 people who started consulting this year. This is not a good year to start, to go full time. It's not a good time to quit your job necessarily. And they're all doing really well. And they're using the techniques we have here. In fact, one of them started January 8th. Some of you may know Doc Blackburn, started full-time consulting January 8th. And if he hadn't left, he might have been laid off. Looks like he would have been, in fact, laid off or furloughed. So let's dive in. So this is from a SANS 2-day hosted class, meaning it's my class, but we run it at SANS. And we're obviously not running it live events soon. I was just talking with Georgina saying we can't wait until we start running live events again. But there are some safety issues and we're not quite ready. There are a lot of notable alumni that have gone on and become successful consultants. Some you'll know by name: Tim Medine, Doc Blackburn, Mick Douglas, and there's a lot of others who you've never heard of who have done this as well. Now, will be available soon as SANS Live Online, and it will be, but we don't have an exact date set. We're thinking about fall, September, or October, but not 100%. Not 100% sure, but it will be available soonish, let's say. So quick update. Times are obviously tough and strange. I lost 90% of my work March 14th. Now, I've done okay. I've been able to replace most of it. I'm not hurting financially at all. A lot of friends have lost their jobs, right? Furloughed, laid off, sometimes permanent positions deleted. And people have always said that, consulting, it's risky because you don't have guaranteed income and this and that. Well, there are no guarantees in life. I would argue it's possible that an established consultant is more secure with work than an employer or contractor. So, for example, let's pick Doc Blackburn. I know some of you know Doc. Doc does some teaching for SANS. He also does some consulting. He has 3 major clients. Let's say something happens to one of them. They go out of business or they get mad at him or something. He's lost 1/3 of his work. That's not quite losing your job, right? The others will probably pick up the slack. So it might actually be more secure work-wise to be a consultant with multiple clients. So is this a bad time to start? I do not suggest anyone quit their job now and dive in, although there's 3 people that have this year I just talked to. One of them did March 31st. That was his plan, and he wasn't going to change his plan, and he did that. When I started, it was during a recession, 1990. The recovery was a so-called jobless recovery, and there were thousands of people around unemployed claiming they were consultants competing with me. Okay, if you've never had a client before and you're really looking for a full-time job, consultant does sound better than unemployed, but you're not really a consultant. There's a lot of companies that were started, big successful ones when times were bad. Thomas Edison might have been a genius, but he didn't pick a genius of a time, 1890, to start General Electric, right? A global recession, and a few years later, the US economy crashed. Walt Disney started during the Great Depression. Now, a little bit before then, with his brother Roy, they were doing some work literally in their uncle's garage, but they did actually start the company we know as Disney during the Great Depression, and let us hope these times do not get as bad, right? The Apple that we know and love, although they started in 75 during a downturn, actually began after the dot-com crash, the Apple we know of now in 2001. So a lot of good organizations, very profitable, long-term ones that provide a lot of value, do start during tough times, including consultants. And I was so tempted to change this and add these 3 consultants who started this year who are doing well. One's Doc Blackburn, one's Russell Eubanks, and one's my friend Angel Canada. But I didn't want to go and take away from the main material. So just like, remember airplanes? I don't think anyone gets on them. Sometimes they show a movie and they say things have been modified or changed for the screen. Well, this actual section from the course is about 2 hours, and we've shrunk it down to the most important things. So obviously, as a consultant, you need clients, whether you are consulting full-time or consulting on the side. If I were an employee now, I would be moving towards getting ready to consult on the side, if nothing else, to spread out risk. Now, it turns out you don't need a lot of clients. Some clients will stay clients for a long time. Some clients will give you a lot of work. Some clients fall in both categories. So one of the first consultants I ever met, David Chappell, had this mothership concept he talked about. The big client that gives you a lot of work. You don't want it to be 95%, right? But 50, 60 is okay. SANS, I've worked with SANS for, it's almost 17 years now. My first 2 long-term clients. My first client was the Open Software Foundation. I did a lot of work for Digital Equipment, who's now part of Hewlett-Packard. I spent 8 years with both of them, right, as a consultant. Some years doing a lot of work, some years doing less. And I have lots of other clients that have been multi-year clients that for periods of time gave me lots of work. Now, there's 2 ways to get clients. One is clients come to you. Man, that's awesome. If someone comes to you, I'm going to give you lots of concrete examples here. Maybe they know you personally, or maybe you're an acknowledged expert, or maybe they found a great article or a YouTube video on something. We can also talk about going to the clients, so-called outbound marketing. Now, it turns out sometimes this is really easy. All right, it's not hard to contact past colleagues and friends. And some other types are not that tough. Some kinds, and I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do cold calling. By the way, on the phone, that actually still works. And these annoying messages you get in LinkedIn out of the blue from people you don't want to talk to, they actually still work sometimes. I'm not suggesting you do any of that. Quick background. Marketing. Oxford Dictionary says it's the action or business of promoting and selling products or services, including market research and advertising. Big overall, right? Market research helps you determine what you're going to sell and who you're going to sell it to. So as a consultant, your product or service, right, is, or at least it includes you. So marketing, just doing good things visibly so you look good, putting your best forward. Now, for market research, I can tell you these 3 areas are hot areas in consulting. DFIR, right? Absolutely penetration testing. and certainly privacy. Now, I'm not telling you you should try to consult in these areas unless you're interested in them, right? If you're interested in them, awesome. But we can tell from market research hot areas. Now, you don't have to be in a hot area to be successful. You could be in a dull area as long as you got 2 or 3 or 4 clients that are interested. Let's dive in. How do you get clients? You got 11 ways. First of all, it's hard to convince someone to work with you the first time because there is risk. There is risk in hiring someone either as full-time or as a consultant. There's less risk if someone's worked with you before because they know you, right? They know you, they know your strengths, your weaknesses, and you've worked with people before. Who are they? Where are they now? When I started consulting in 1990, these were big questions. Today, they're online. They're probably almost all in LinkedIn, among other places. They're easier to find, right? Now, ideally, the clients are coming to you. In order for them to come to you, they need to know who you are, right? And they need to remember who you are. People forget quickly. They may remember you if a name pops up, but they need to be reminded regularly. They need to know that you can help them. And they need to trust you, or trust that you can actually help them. So, example, this was my first client. I was working for Hewlett Packard. I was planning on leaving. I had a plan. Plan didn't work out. I was leaving my job. I was going to travel for a couple of months. I always wanted to travel. I had a free flight into Taipei and then a free flight back from Bangkok like 8 weeks later, and I was probably going to miss the flight back. I didn't care. I got a free flight from Marriott hotel points, and it's what I could book for free. I had no big desire to go to Taipei, although it sounds interesting. I wanted to go to Southeast Asia, and it got me close. I already had the plane ticket. And then I was going to come back, and then I was going to try out consulting. Well, several people I worked with had gone to an industry consortium called the Open Software Foundation. They hosted an event at my company, Hewlett Packard. After the talk, I hung out, and the speaker couldn't answer some questions. Well, I knew the underlying technology. I was answering some of the questions. They offered me work pretty quickly. First full-time, but I don't want a full-time job. I have one. And I was like, okay, you can consult for us. And it's like, I don't really want to start consulting. How about in a couple of months? Well, let me put it this way. I gave 2 weeks notice. When I got home in 2 weeks that Friday night, I was lying on the couch reading documentation on the clock for them. It's really common for former colleagues to hire you as a consultant. You stay in touch. Second example. I was staying at a friend's place in Los Angeles. I had been studying Spanish, and I was planning on going to Baja, Mexico. I'd never been to Mexico. I'd spoken on a Sunday at the IBM conference, and the phone rings at my friend's place. This is pre-cell phone. There's this guy, Bob. I had met Bob once at a conference. We had hit it off. We'd had a great conversation. We probably grabbed a couple of beers afterwards. Anyway, he had found something perfect that he wanted me to help with. He actually looked up my last name, Demopoulos, in probably the physical phone book back then. Found my mother. My mother gave him the phone number. He called. I'm like, Bob, and he explained, it was, oh yeah, Bob, I remember you. He was a great guy, right? He's like, hey, would you mind calling this guy Howard? He really needs some help. You can probably answer his questions in seconds. And so I called this guy Howard, who ends up being local, it turns out. He was just nearby, that was just like a fluke. Like, can I come in on Monday morning? Okay. Yeah, sure, I can come in tomorrow. I can come in and talk to you for a little bit. Seems like a nice guy. Still in touch with Howard, even though he's retired now. I worked for 12 weeks on this project, right? Immediately dove in, and I was billing a lot more than 40 or 50 hours a week. And it was exciting and fun. Mexico would have been fun too. I ended up going to Mexico 28 years later. So I ended up going to Mexico too. Another example. Now, when I left Hewlett Packard, I left on really good terms. In fact, although I didn't belong there, it was not the right company for me. It was not during their glory years by any stretch of the imagination. But they were good people. They treated me well. I gave them 2 weeks notice, told them I would stay longer if need be. I waited until major projects I had were almost done. I could finish them up because I wanted to finish and leave them in great shape. I told them I'd stay longer if they wanted to, and I stayed in touch. I was totally shocked when they contacted me and hired me back as a consultant. Let's say within a few months, it was certainly that year. It wasn't right away, but it was a few months out. Another example, I had lost touch of this friend from college. I had a lot of friends from college I had lost touch with, and someone gave me his email. So I emailed him. We just got in touch with him. Turns out he worked for Gartner. I had no idea. He recommended me to the Department of Defense's Defense Contract Management Agency, DCMA. They called me up. They were interested in having me come do some work, actually a keynote at a conference. Gentleman that called me said that, hey, there's a committee, certainly really interested, but the committee is going to make a decision. We've got a couple other people to talk to. He didn't even know how to spell my name, right? Demopoulos is not that easy to spell. He Googled me afterwards, found some stuff I'd written online, called me back 30 minutes later. He said, I'm in charge of the committee. You want the work, you have it, right? Clients came to me. It was through networking. Now, here's an interesting one. This one's real recently. If you have good OSINT skills, you can actually figure out who this was. But I got this email on a Friday. Now, I got it late. I probably got the email at midnight or something like that. And I didn't answer it. I do not answer email to people that I don't know, usually late at night, because sometimes I send stupid emails. And notice it just said hello, doesn't even have my name there. I would like to discuss the possibility of kind of looks like they emailed a bunch of people, right? Well, the next morning I didn't answer it either because I left around 7 a.m. with my daughter to go skiing. I'm on the chairlift and I get a message on LinkedIn. And I look, and it's a name that's vaguely familiar. It's about the same conference. So I answer the guy on the chairlift saying, hey, I just heard from so-and-so. I haven't had a chance to answer his email. He's like, okay, well, we're really interested. That night, when I got home, sent an email. We sent 2 or 3 emails back and forth. I got back late. I said, I can talk to you tomorrow, but I'm flying to Miami. Want to talk at 8 at night? He wants to talk right away. 8 o'clock was a safe time for me to have gotten to the hotel with plane delays and, getting luggage. And sure enough, he sent me half the money up front via PayPal, like within a couple of hours of talking to him. So it's great when clients come to you, but it doesn't always happen. But it does sometimes. Direct outreach is a great way. By the way, direct outreach is working really well today. Really easy to reach out to someone you know. You might just say hello, or you might let them know about something specific. Sometimes it's easy if you have a specific reason. A great reason today is, hey, haven't talked in a long time. You got 5 or 10 minutes, catch up on a phone call or a Zoom call, right? That's working these days. Although we're kind of getting tired of Zoom, some of us. Last Friday, I was literally on 2 Zoom calls simultaneously, which was a little bit of overload, but I needed to be on one and I was supposed to monitor the other. Friend of mine, Tony Corrado, long-term consultant in Hong Kong, didn't like to travel, didn't like to work outside of Hong Kong. At least twice a week, he disappeared to go have lunch with someone he knew. All of his marketing, all of his clients were found by having lunch. And Tony loves lunch. He's a foodie like me, and Hong Kong's full of good food, so that worked. So I didn't get this email today, but when I wrote this slide, I did. I'll be finishing my chief security and privacy officer work with, the company was actually Huawei. Huawei, the telecommunication giant that's massive everywhere in the world except for the US and Australia, right? Finishing his work. He was living in Singapore, although his office was in, was it in Shanghai? Wherever they're centered. He reported directly to the president. By early March, looking for more work, right? Anywhere, it doesn't matter where it is. Now, there's 2 requirements. He said, has to be fun and well paid. He has a bunch of children, so money matters. Do you have any pointers? Now, he found work pretty quickly. A very key thing with this direct outreach. This gentleman, good friend of mine, we've been in touch for, I don't know, for a very long time. I heard from him in the last week, right? Heard from him in the last week. He didn't just contact me only because he needed something. He'd been in contact with me off and on all the time. Yeah, probably sometimes we didn't talk for 2 years, and sometimes we talked every week. And we did work together once upon a time, a very, very long time ago. He pretty quickly found a selection of different positions. And in fact, he got a long-term consulting gig where the Swiss Stock Exchange was his mothership client. He moved to Zurich, and I visited him there a little bit before the pandemic started, actually. And it's very easy for him to do, and he's very good at keeping in touch with people. When I started consulting, the advice that I was given was communicate, communicate, communicate. So what did I do? I gave my 2 weeks notice, and I spent 2 weeks on the telephone telling everybody, college friends, high school friends, all of my colleagues. I told my neighbor, I told the mailman, I told my neighbor's babysitter, the guy at the gas. I told everybody. Doesn't cost anything to tell everybody. Now, today I'd use more email. This was 1990. Although those of us in security and technology had email, not everybody did back then. If it was 20 years before then, I probably would have used a fax machine a lot. At one point, I wrote a class on the new version of Windows NT. It was the first modern version of Windows. Actually had security features. Wasn't even done. I just started telling people that might be interested. Right, so lots of it. One of the first consultants I ever knew, it was the second one. He worked for Apollo Computer, my first job. This guy, Dave, nice guy, called me up once. I hadn't seen him in 6 months, and it was the holidays. He just called up to say Happy New Year. And I'm sure he probably called like 100 people. Now, I was in no position to hire him, right? I was not a manager. I had no budget. But he literally, we were friendly. He called, say, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, which helps me keep him top of mind in case maybe I could recommend him for something. This is a very effective technique, just contacting people because it's something. It's New Year's or Happy 4th of July if you're in the United States, or, happy whatever. I always send a barrage of happy holidays emails every year. Might be 20, might be 50 to people I like and haven't communicated with in a long time, just to stay top of mind. If you write something interesting, tell people, right? Tell people about it. In fact, the last book that I wrote, I probably sent copies to 100 people. And there was probably well over 1,000. I gave it away for the cost of shipping and handling. It's like, didn't cost me anything other than buying the books. And the books were cheap as the author. It was like $2 or $3. It was under $3. I'll give you my book, just, pay for the shipping and handling. And I actually hired some local people, literally my 2 daughters, to take the books, stick them in envelopes, and take them to the post office. People love surveys, right? So you could do a survey and tell people about it. I'm thinking about starting a survey really soon about what's working in consulting today, a pandemic, what's working in consulting. And I've actually, yesterday and today, I talked to 3 successful consultants, like, what are you doing now? What's working now? I might make this an official survey and actually do a webcast on it. Look, here's a bunch of stuff that's working now, right? And then I email all kinds of other people as well and say, hey, look, I put together this report. Now, number 6, pretty interesting. I came up with this idea about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, not that long ago. People have gotten a lot of work. Of all the people you've worked with before, there are bound to be some you loved working with. For whatever reason, working with them was just awesome. I can come up with a quick list. Contact them, say, hey, remember when we did this? Man, that was awesome. I hope we get a chance to work again together. Now, if you're thinking about starting consulting, that might come up in a conversation that goes on, or if you are going to, of course, you'll mention that. But even if you're not sure, it's like, maybe I'm going to consult someday. These are the kind of people you want to stay in touch with, because if you loved working with them, chances are they probably loved working with you too. There are some people I would love to work with again. So let me go back a few slides. This guy, man, I would love to work with this dude again. We still hang out sometimes, just haven't had the opportunity in probably 20 years. I would love to pull him into a project of mine and vice versa. And I'm sure eventually we will work together. We love working together. Now, it's hard to transition, at least for me, and probably for most of you, to a talk about work, even if it's like one of your best friends or someone you talk to all the time. There's this guy named David A. Fields. He actually wrote a book on how to get clients in consulting. You can find it on Amazon and so forth. It's not focused at technical or computer security. It's on management consulting, but it's a good book. He says, use the turn. That you just tell them, and I'll put this in your own words. Hey, be open to having a separate conversation where we can talk about your business and whether I can help you out with achieving your goals. This is so simple to say. Right? It's so low pressure. It's not now. It's like, hey, would you be open at some time? It's so easy to do it. Most people can say, sure. And you might talk about it right then, or you might talk about it later. It may or may not go anywhere, but it starts the conversation. Every once in a while, somebody will say, nah, I don't really want to talk about it. Like, okay, cool, right? It's just so low pressure. And sometimes just, taking this and writing it in your own words. And this is pretty close to what my own words would be, right? It's just very simple to do. Now, you can also outreach to people you don't know. Okay, this one's harder because there's people you don't know, but it still works, and salespeople do it all the time, and we can. And in some cases, it's simple and can work very well. So here's an example. My friend Joe Heuer, works primarily in healthcare, does a lot with state chapters of associations in healthcare. Now, he does all kinds of stuff, does a lot of keynotes. He's a keynote speaker, among other things. Whenever he does any work, usually it's a keynote with a state chapter of an association, he'll call the presidents of the other associations. Like, hey, I just worked with your friend Bob or Mary. I just did this with them. I thought I'd call up and say hi. Now, he lives in a capital as well. He lives in, what's the capital of Michigan? I think it's Lansing. And he'll just walk directly into association offices, unannounced, very, very politely say, hey, I'm Joe Heuer. Whoever's in charge of booking keynote speakers, could I talk to them for just 2 minutes? And he really does keep it to 2 minutes. Will not talk any longer unless the person wants to continue the conversation. And most people, if you ask them for 2 minutes, are like, yeah, I'll talk to you for 2 minutes. You're here. And if they're like, I'm too busy, it's like, okay, no problem. Now, I don't know how comfortable I'd be doing this. I'm sure I can do this. I'm sure. I'm not super comfortable just walking cold into offices. Although when I was doing social engineering penetration testing, I did it all the time. So I'm sure I could, but this is just one technique, an example, and it works. Now here's a bad, but not horrible example. Okay, I got this via email. Hi, sir, madam. I hope you're doing well. I wanted to reach out and see if you had a few minutes to chat about blah, blah, blah. Then a little bit of what they are. And do you have a few minutes to chat this week or next? Okay, this might be legally spam. This is not a great email, but there are some things they're doing very, very well. The hi, sir / madam is horrible. They should have looked on my website and gotten Ted, or they could have just said, hey, you. That probably would have been better. But notice they start, I hope you're doing well, right? Informally. They make it clear what they want. I want to reach out and see if you have a few minutes to chat. To tell you a little bit about them at the end, there's another, we call it a call to action. What do they want? Do you have a few minutes to chat this week or next? Cheers, and then the name. Now, I'm sure this works probably has very low yield. Maybe they get, I don't know, 0.5% response. Maybe for every 1,000 emails, they get 5 replies, maybe. But there are some good things about this, right? Some parts of it are quite informal. They make it very clear what they want. Now, make it clear, I'm not saying send out emails like this, but even from this bad example or not great example, there are some good things. So I did a phishing survey, right, on phishing, and this is when phishing was fairly new type of attack. I actually walked around with a survey board and talked to people. People usually talk to you if you got some sort of a board with you. And I also, after I did it, and wrote up the report, I reached out via email to people I didn't know who I thought might be interested in the report. Some percentage thought I was trying to phish them, which was amusing. And you can do this with any kind of content, especially free content you produce. It's like, I wrote this report. This person might be interested. Drop them an email. Send a LinkedIn message. Mike Muir. Mike is a forensic guy, does some reverse engineering, a few other things. He's a consultant. He reaches out to people on LinkedIn. No, not these spammy messages, but he does conversations, comments on articles and posts, and sometimes he will directly reach out initially via message. But only after there's some sort of initial interaction does he possibly talk about business and whether it makes sense to talk about maybe working together. I think today I got 3 spam LinkedIn things, right? One person's like, hey, we should really talk. I want to sell you something. Go to my Calendly link and set something up. It was obvious they wanted to sell something. Like, no, you just connected to me. You're throwing stuff at me. Yeah, I think I'll block you instead. All right, I didn't do that, but I do. Referrals are an absolutely amazing way to get work. Now, I remember one company, somebody contacted me and his boss's boss had said to contact Ted Demopoulos. He can help us. Do you think when someone's boss's boss says to contact you about helping them, there's any discussion about whether you're competent or how much you're going to charge? No, not really. It's like that was in the back. I got that consulting project and it was an awesome one. Now, some referrals will just happen. And I have gotten referrals from even high school friends and people I've met through common hobbies and so forth. So some will happen, but we should ask for referrals. And we don't do this enough, including me. If you have existing clients, hey, anywhere else in this organization I could provide value, or anywhere else, anyone else here you think I can help? Right? You're not saying, hey, you think there's anyone else here that can pay me money? And among colleagues, hey, if you know anyone I can help, introduce us. I'm a consultant, and think about it. If I can help anybody, let me know. That's what consultants do. We help people. Now, sometimes asking for specific referrals makes sense. So I remember not too long ago, I said, hey, can you introduce me to your equivalent, the person that has your role in Asia Pacific, to a client of mine? And she said, oh yeah, that's so-and-so. I talked to them this morning. They'd be happy to talk to you. You could also add, if introducing me isn't convenient, do you mind if I reach out and mention your name, that I talked to you or that I know you? When you've got a new client, you're doing work with a new client, when the project is going well, the project is a success so far. Maybe it's half done, maybe it's 2/3 done, everyone's happy, right? That's when you start asking for referrals, when everyone's happy and things are going well. Not at the end when they're kind of like, okay, what's next? In your local community, you can ask referral from other professionals. So in the next month, I have an appointment with my dentist. I'm definitely talking to my attorney about some estate planning. About 2 weeks ago, I had my yearly physical. Say to any of these people, my doctor knows me really well. It was like, hey, Dr. Decker, hey, you know what I do, computer security consultant. If you meet anyone that I can help, I know you see lots of people, send them my way or introduce us, right? Now, this works better in metropolitan areas. but it can work anywhere. I'm in rural New Hampshire. I bounce between New Hampshire and Maine, and I have no clients in New Hampshire and Maine. I have in the past, but it can still work. Right? It still absolutely can work. Another really good technique, although it's slower than a referral, it's slower than direct outreach, it's slower than someone coming to you, is volunteering. So I don't think my friend Tom's on this call. Tom seems to volunteer for you. Pick an organization he's helping out. He even helps out with SANS conferences. The last live SANS Boston, he wasn't a formal facilitator, though he's done it. He just called up the lady in charge, Sandy. He said, "Hey, Sandy, I'm in town. If I can help you with anything, let me know." And she was like, "No, I think we're all set. Stop by and have a coffee with me." But he volunteers all over the place. And I'll tell you, you meet some interesting people. You're probably going to have fun. And these people you've met, they're now people you've worked with. And even if you're a relative newbie, you're meeting people as peers. And also, saying, I work with Black Hat or ShmooCon or B-Sides Boston, or adds credibility, right? Those are things you put on your resume and in LinkedIn and stuff like that. And volunteering is a little different now, right? Most of it's online. That's a temporary thing, but volunteering is easy, particularly if you're going to go to the event anyway or want to go to the event. You can also volunteer for various good causes, charities, and so forth. There's long been a tradition in many parts of the world, including the US, including Europe, including Australia, where fairly high-level people, executives, volunteer for good causes. They're often encouraged to do that by their organizations. So my brother-in-law, very high up position he works with Easter seals, and his company encourages that. Now, he's in no position to hire me, nor do I want to work for my brother-in-law, nice enough guy as he is, but you're going to meet some high-level people. Now, they probably can't hire you, but someone that works for them might. If the boss says, or the boss's boss, or the boss's boss's boss, again, it carries a lot of weight. Now, you should be volunteering because you believe in the cause. So I volunteered several years in New Hampshire for Special Olympics for swimming because I believe it. It's a really good program. Do not expect to get any work out of that, but it could happen. I have met some interesting people. Then again, with the type of work that I do in rural New Hampshire, it's perhaps less likely, but still quite possible. Now, we're going to talk about speaking and writing briefly. And the reason it says briefly is because in the full course, we've got longer sections on this. Now, if you're speaking, you are considered an expert, okay? It can even be a horrible speech. You're considered an expert because you're speaking. You definitely have high visibility. And consultants are experts, right? Expert doesn't mean number one expert in the world. It just means you have valuable, specialized skills, and we all do. And anyone can speak. It's not hard. It really isn't. We all have experience and knowledge. Even if you only have a year of experience, you probably have done something. There may be a case study with permission that you can talk about, right? And if you're not comfortable with speaking, well, speaking is a professional skill. You might be presenting and speaking in front of 3 people or 10 or 10,000. It's a professional skill. It's something you want to learn how to do, even if you may be terrified. There's a great organization called Toastmasters, T-O-A-S-T Masters. They're non-for-profit. They're really inexpensive to join. They're all over the place. Where you get speaking experience in front of a truly friendly audience, right? It's so low pressure, but anyone can learn to speak. A lot of consultants, including many of my friends, including some SANS instructors, get a lot of their clients through speaking. Writing, it's like a speaker or a writer is considered an expert. There's all kinds of things that you can write. Now, the best thing to write from the credibility viewpoint is a book. I'm not suspecting most people will write a book, but I do have a SANS webcast. You can look it up. It's in the archive. You can listen to it for free on writing an Infosec book. And basically, about 83% of the population wants to write a book. You can write one for sure, but you don't have to. You could write an article. Let me give you a very, very concrete example here. Ken Hartman, as part of one of his SANS certifications, a GX certification, wrote an optional gold paper. And I'm trying to remember the name of it. It was on the legal aspects of BitTorrent and legal aspects. And I was just rereading the paper. Turns out about 43% of information spread via BitTorrent are MP4s or videos, usually pirated. A bunch of MP3s, some are pirated. There's also a substantial amount of child pornography, which is horrible, but it also has legal reasons. I mean, there are also legal reasons to use BitTorrent as well. Well, he wrote an article on that, 33-page research paper. It was a hard topic because there wasn't much written on it, and he doesn't have a legal degree. Went in the SANS reading room, guess what? He's gotten work from it. He absolutely has and keeps getting work from it. So just writing and articles work really well. And there's so many places to put articles, including LinkedIn and Medium and Peerlist. Now, some of you are going to say, I don't like to write, or I can't write. Let me be honest. I always hated writing. I went to one of the best high schools, I'm going to claim, on the planet, okay? They taught me how to write, and they beat me into it. When I went to college, I took the aptitude test. I got put in a class for writing with inner city kids, quite literally, and English as a second language. So even though they beat me into it, I was bad. I always hated writing. I've learned that if I'm not forced to write like I was in school, I actually like it. And if I don't have someone correcting it, but maybe an editor or someone looking over it, I like doing it. I'm working on my 4th book right now. It's going to be on consulting. So I'm working on my 4th, 5th, and 6th book kind of simultaneously. But that's not an intelligent thing to do, so we won't go into that. Okay, networking. Both easy, because there's so many opportunities, even in times of COVID online. It's also hard because it takes time. Now, one of the most important things is we do not network when we want something. We network before we want something. Okay? It's kind of like I'm on an exercise kick these days. And ideally, you're exercising to stay healthy, not exercising to get healthy, right? And part of getting healthy for me is keeping my weight in trim, keeping my weight from being excessive. And fortunately, I'm at the position now that I'm exercising to keep my weight at a healthy level. Before, I was exercising because I lost like 40 pounds in the last 2.5 years. Yeah, I used to be pretty big. Still am. So you're networking when you don't need anything, right? You're trying to help other people. Outreach occasionally. Send them, happy summer solstice, or, happy new year. Hope all's going well. It's like, hey, man, times are tough now. Hope you're doing okay. Just things like that. Work acquaintances, right? Get to know them. Right? Ask them to lunch. Not probably right now, although I've been doing Zoom lunches with people, believe it or not. I've also been going to having drinks with people on Zoom, although that's getting kind of tiring, to be quite honest. But networking with work acquaintances, relatively easy, and you can often do it during work hours, right? Grabbing a coffee with them or so forth once this pandemic slows down. Also networking events. I don't know. Sometimes I like networking events. Usually I don't like them at all. Even the ones that SANS has, sometimes I just stand in a corner afraid to go talk to anybody. And people are like, dude, you're a SANS instructor. This is a SANS event. It's like nobody knows who I am, and I want to be left alone. And I'm not always the most social, right? I am an introvert, but network events should be easy. The key is don't only talk to people you know. Now, you can hang out with someone you know and walk around and talk to people. And except for when I'm tired, when I have no desire to do this, that's because I'm an introvert. It's so simple. You look for a friendly face or someone standing alone, just walk up and say hi, right? And if you actually have a conversation, you ask a couple questions. You may exchange contact information, maybe connect with them on LinkedIn or Twitter or something later on if there's any interest. That's all there is. I have met some phenomenal people at security events who, even if we weren't working in security together, were really interesting. I've also met some other people I probably won't remember unless I run into them again because we didn't hit it off for whatever reason. We didn't have much in common, or we didn't talk long, or so forth. But networking events are easy. I'm just not always in the mood for them as an introvert. That's okay. If I'm not in the mood, I don't go. Now, another way is trade associations. You know, there's a trade association for almost everything you can possibly imagine. So let's you we work in insurance, right? Or you work in healthcare, or you work almost anything. There will be one or usually more than one trade groups. By the way, if you have a full-time job, you might even be encouraged to do this by your employer. Boy, will you meet people that can potentially hire you. Now, if I worked in one vertical, whether it was insurance or manufacturing or healthcare, I'd look for trade associations. In fact, I don't. I work across a lot of different verticals. Just to give you an example of how many trade associations there are, did you know that there are trade associations for funeral directors, the National Association of Funeral Directors? Yeah. They have the wildest convention possible, I'm told, in Las Vegas. Ask any cab driver or Uber driver. They know them. The one time a year that they can actually smile and have fun, they go wild. Healthcare, there's dozens. There's even a healthcare association for hair replacement surgeons. This just shows you how granular that it gets, right? There will be a trade group if you work or come from one specific vertical. Don't just join, but network, volunteer, help out at the conference or with a newsletter, maybe speak at the conference. If they do have a newsletter or journal, many do, can you write for it? Maybe outreach to the members. Trade associations, and you may find you are one of the few Infosec people active in the trade association. That means there's like not much competition, but everybody has requirements now because of regulatory law, if nothing else. Now, there's also advertising. Now, there's two kinds of advertising, and this is an advanced topic. There's brand advertising, like having your name on the New Year blimp, or is it the Goodrich blimp? I think it's a New Year blimp, or like ads on the Super Bowl, which will hopefully happen this year. That's brand advertising. We don't use that as consultants. You might use direct response, okay? Advanced technique, but with direct response, you're getting the person to do something. Take some action. Click on a link. Give you an email address in order to have like access to a video or a special report or something like that. Nobody is going to see your ad and say, oh, this person does blah, blah, blah consulting. Let me give them $20,000 to work. No, it doesn't work that way. It's definitely a multi-step, I'm going to use the word sales, multi-step sales process where you get to know them. You build a relationship with them by providing value, very often over email. And there's some people that teach consultants how to get clients using advertising. Definitely an advanced technique. I've used a little bit. There's a gentleman named Frank Kern. I don't know Frank personally, but I am definitely a big fan of his. I'm going to write his name in. Frank Kern, very colorful man. Got a lot of good free stuff online. He goes into that, but this is fairly advanced. referral and subcontracting arrangements. So you might find you get a lot of work from one source. Might be a friend that does similar but not quite the same consulting, or from a small or big company. That's great. They send you a lot of work from the same, if one consultant or group. You might talk about having some sort of referral fees or referral arrangement. I know there's been some pen testers in the past, and I don't do pen testing these days, where it's like, I'll send them people and they've said, I'll give you 10%, or was it 5%? I don't know. It never happened. I sent them some work and I said, look, if I send you enough work that this is substantial, then we can talk about it. Otherwise, if I have clients that have a need and you can help them, man, I'm psyched. It's a win-win, and they'll like me better too. I spent a lot of time with various arrangements like this. Originally, it was for a lot of the big vendors, and then for some startups where I'd actually go in representing one of the vendors. I'd go in representing, Cisco or Hewlett-Packard or IBM to their clients. I've also done it for some smaller companies, including startups, where I'm not an employee, but I'm there representing them as though I were an employee, not lying about anything, right? It's like I've been sent by IBM to help you and so forth. These can be absolutely fantastic relationships, and these arrangements can result in a lot of work. So, which of these techniques will work for you? Now, obviously, if you're not consulting full-time, but want to start consulting on the side in addition to your full-time job, I also have a webinar on that you can go take a look at, as well as a class on that. Obviously, there's some things you can't do. You're not going to be advertising, for example, right? But you can be giving talks at conferences, and guess what? Your employer might be encouraging that. You can be writing. You can maybe be active in a trade association. There's a lot of things to do. But overall, I don't know what's going to work for you, and you don't either. So 2 examples. First of all, I do not get a lot of consulting work through my Speaking for SANS. I don't. I'm okay with that. I don't get a lot. I get some. I'm happy with what I get. I know other SANS instructors who get most of their work through speaking at SANS, who get most of it. And most SANS instructors are not full-time employees. The majority are probably consultants, independent, probably way more than 50, 60%. The RSA conference. I have 2 friends that speak there regularly. One gets work there almost every time. Every year he speaks, he almost always gets 1 or 2 consulting gigs. The other one doesn't. He just, for whatever reason, whether it's topic or I don't know, he's happy to go speak there and raise his profile. I used to get most of my work through referrals of people that I had worked with for a long time, 20 plus years. Guess what? Those people are all retired now. So I'm doing different kinds of things. There's so many different things you can do, and some of them are going to be pleasant, meaning you don't mind doing them. You kind of like doing them, right? They're okay. They're not hard for you. You enjoy them. Like I'm enjoying giving webinars now. And I'm loving writing books, even though it's a lot of work. So I do have a number of other resources that are available online. First of all, my Infosec Rockstar 2020 talk, there's a lot in there that's extremely useful for consultants. A lot on getting your name out there and building skills and so forth. I only mentioned the Cryptography Essentials Made Simple because it was one of the more popular talks that I've given. Again, these are all in the archives of the webcasts. There've got to be at least 4 or 5 other talks on how to be successful InfoSec consulting. Also going to mention on YouTube. Now, I'm going to lie, but I'll tell you what the lie is. I put up a new video on consulting almost every week. Yeah, I haven't since last year. But I've got 23 consulting videos, and they're all short. They're all like 2 to 5 minutes, easy to digest. and I'm going to start adding more very, very soon. As a matter of fact, I can see my camera and tripod from where I am here. Some other stuff there, but very useful. Also, if you take a look at the website on the bottom, successfulinfosecconsulting.com, I've got specifically some information on that less than beautiful website right now, specifically on how to get clients. So, upcoming stuff coming from SANS. Security Essentials class, great skills for a consultant. It's a multi-week class, 2 weeks. We will be running the full Infosec consulting class. It's 2 days of material, whether we do it over 2 days or 4 half days over 2 weeks, and we're not sure. And I don't know if it's going to be September, October, November. Things are very much in flux, obviously, with the difficulties we're having now. I have one more webcast booked. I think August 6th. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but I think it might be on consulting. I will absolutely have more webcasts coming on consulting, including hopefully on getting started during COVID, or what would I do if I had to start now? And possibly it's like, but by interviewing successful consultants, what's working now? That could be one webcast, that could be 3 different ones, but I will be doing more for sure. So that is the end of the presentation. I'm going to take a look and see if there are any questions. And let's see. How do you protect yourself from litigation if you consult badly? Thank you. Okay. Insurance. Okay. Insurance. That's the answer. There's 2 kinds of insurance you're particularly interested in. Now, some clients will insist you have it. One is professional liability insurance. And let me write this in the chat. Professional liability insurance. Professional. And it's not expensive. It's also sometimes called errors and omissions, which I'm probably misspelling, and omissions insurance. And it probably costs less per year than I spend in coffee. I'm a little bit of a coffee geek, but I don't spend that much money on coffee. There are a number of different companies that sell this. There's actually lots if you look online. Now, one company that many people that have taken my class have mentioned is called Hiscox, Hiscox. And in fact, if you're in penetration testing, they're one of the few that actually understand what that is. There have been a number of others that have been mentioned. I use a company called Amica. I have an umbrella policy with them. People have mentioned MetLife. I have no experience, although I did some work for them once. So there are a few companies that provide that. Now, besides this professional liability, also called errors and omissions, which some clients may require that you have to work with them. Not most, but some will. And even the ones that will often won't tell you or follow up. We also have general liability insurance. General liability is, let's say someone comes to your office and they slip and they fall and break their leg and they sue you. Or, you hit a bicyclist when you're driving to see a client. That's general liability. Again, not expensive. What I actually have is I have what's called an umbrella policy. And my umbrella policy, which is a rider on my homeowner's insurance, actually covers those 2. Those are not expensive insurances. Okay, they're not expensive. What is expensive is health care for the United States. And any kind of disability insurance, I've never seen reasonable prices on. So I basically self-insure for disability, meaning I have money in the bank or liquid assets in case I get sick. Let me see if we have any other questions. We don't. Let me say a couple of things. First of all, you can email me. Put my email here. It's ted@demop.com. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Just send me a quick note. You were sitting here. Also, I'm on Twitter at teddemop.com. I'm going to be building out successful infosecconsulting.com, which is on all of the slides. A PDF of these slides will be available. I'm going to PDF this and probably within 5 minutes and send it off to SANS. And with that, let's see, we got one more question. What's the link for the essentials on crypto? Okay, it's going to be on sans.org. You're going to have to take a look in webcasts and look in archives. Just dig through archives and just look for Ted Demopoulos, and you'll find probably 8 or so relatively recent webcasts. I've been having fun doing this while I'm stuck at home, and I like doing that. So thank you, everybody. And with that, I will say, hope you have a good day, and I will see you all next time. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Ted, for your awesome presentation, which helps bring this content to the SANS community. To our audience, we greatly appreciate you listening in. For a schedule of all upcoming and archive SANS webcasts, as Ted mentioned, you can find them all in the archive or the upcoming pages of sans.org/webcasts. Until next time, take care, and we hope you have you back soon for the next SANS webcast.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Georgina.
Bye.